You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to V.A.C. Roundtable. That's right, we're up to number 75, and we have a very special guest as we keep up with what's actually happening in the rest of the world. There's still things happening here in the United States, and we have a veteran and EMT with us today, Carmine Fiore out of New York. Is one of the social equity applicants in the state of New York. And of course, the state of New York promised to honor disabled veterans that were service connected as they passed out their initial permits. However, what happened and what was promised did not necessarily meet with reality. So we're joined by one of the lead plaintiffs in this situation, Carmine Fiore. So again, Carmine, thank you for joining us today. And I'm just going to kind of go right into it, which the first question is also a multi-tiered question because everybody has a different experience when they first came to it. So how did you first come to cannabis? What made it the trajectory in your life that it is today? So thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Etienne. I appreciate that. Thanks for everyone for having me. And yeah, great question. How did I come to originally come to cannabis? Well, originally came to cannabis when I was 13 years old. And me and some neighborhood friend of mine that lived around the block from me were introduced to cannabis through an older kid that was in high school at the time, and he smoked a joint and shared it with us. And at the time, I didn't know what I was embarking on when I tried my first joint, but at the time it was rebellious. It was rebellious, and it went against the status quo of what the community was, and or especially what my family stood for. So it was very nerve-wracking and full of anxiety. And I don't even remember if I enjoyed it the first time. I tell you, if I didn't enjoy it, it didn't scare me enough away to try it the second and third time. But I could definitely remember it bringing my friends closer together, and how in acquiring it and figuring out how to smoke it and who's going to bring the lighter and where we're going to smoke it. It brought us, our friends, together in that sense, and we had a bonding moment. But yeah, and then I took a few years off from cannabis to join the military and become a first responder, and then finally get reintroduced back to it in 2021, when New York State legalized it again for adult use.
Thank you for that. That's always unique. I always love that question because smoking circles and our friends, that's also a bonding over doing something against the law together is something that can build its own unique community, to say the least. So thank you again for that. Next up will be Council Member Peggy Jones. Council Member.
Thank you, Etienne. Thank you, Carmine, for joining us tonight. My question is, during your time as an EMT, did you see times where cannabis could be used in emergency situations?
I've been thinking about that as a cannabis patient, and I believe it does have its purposes in emergency medicine. More specifically, I think it can be useful in seizures, in seizure control for certain type of seizures, especially for pediatric patients when nothing else is working, except heavy duty narcotics. I'm always someone that would rather opt out of heavy duty narcotics, especially when it comes to pediatrics, just because of long term effects it may have on the cognitive ability of pediatrics, over the course of their lives, because their brain stem and brain is still developing. Yes, you want to stop the seizing, to get the airway back open and, resume, normal breathing, but, you don't want to do it at the cost of permanent damage. So I definitely could see cannabis being useful for seizure control. As far as pain management, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be the one to say if it would be good for emergency care. I do believe cannabis is excellent for pain management. Myself, I went through 2 surgeries without taking any painkillers. And the best way I could describe cannabis for pain management is it changes the perception of pain for me. So I do think it does have its medical benefits, but I'm not too sure about emergency medicine for sure. But it could definitely also be helpful in nausea and vomiting cases. It's definitely helpful with that, because I know certain times for nausea, when I take it, when I'm about to feel like I'm about to vomit, some cannabis oil, really settles the stomach and really puts me back at a homeostasis, in my, regarding my gut health. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I think that would be my best answer for cannabis and emergency medicine, especially as an EMT.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Next up will be Council Member Wade Laughter. Council Member Laughter.
Yeah, thank you, Carmen, for joining us here. Really want to call out your willingness, not just as a military veteran, but as an EMT, to be in service to the community that you find yourself in and the country that you live in. So thank you. From one veteran to another, well done. I also want to call out your willingness to stand up for how the New York legalization scheme is going to play out. And I note that you were removed as the Veterans Committee Chairman of the Cannabis Association of New York State. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why that happened and what it's like going forward for you and your activism? Thank you.
Thank you for your support, first off, and it's my pleasure to meet another veteran, and thank you for your service as well, sir. And yeah, I was elected as the chair of the Veterans Committee for Cannabis Association of New York after the first committee chair stepped down. She stepped down, and the committee elected me to become their chair. And as chair, I became very engrossed in the law and regulations of licenses for veterans because the law, gave veterans prioritization. But unfortunately, the state wasn't prioritizing veterans. They were only prioritizing one group of that was in the law, that was written in the law, and they were somehow forgetting us. So, I told the Veterans Committee, how I felt about this, and they all agreed that there should be some representation for veterans in the law, whether it's on a regulatory body or at least in action via licenses. And that wasn't happening. And I became a very public advocate about how the New York State regulators were not following the law and were not prioritizing veterans as the law stated. And the Cannabis Association we didn't have the same opinions on that. Their opinion was that the law was created and the licenses program was created to help those that had justice involved history. And that's great. And I am in support of that. I am in support of social justice 100%. But unfortunately, the law wasn't written that way. And I was just an advocate for the law. As a veteran and first responder, we know what the op guide looks like. We understand how that look, how we have to read it and memorize it. And those are the bounds in which we could act. and me with this coming into the same mentality into that cannabis industry, I looked at the law and the regulations as my bounds and what my operating orders were. And they weren't being followed. And so I stood up for veterans across New York State and be like, hey, we're not being heard, just like the law states we should. And I was removed, and it was okay. I took that. That's fine. And as after I was removed, the committee reelected me as committee chair, and then at that point they removed me from the association completely after I was reelected to chair. So then they removed me completely from the association for differences of opinion, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But I do think the Cannabis Association of New York is doing phenomenal work, and they really are advocating highly for a lot of cannabis entrepreneurs in the state.
Thank you for that. So, how did your community around you respond to these situations when they happened to you? It had to come as a shock, not only to you, but as those around you. So did you find support, or what did you find when that transpired?
I found a great deal of support in the veteran community. And that I got a lot of messages on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on emails, text messages, on other platforms, all in support of veterans, and thanking me for advocating on their behalf. They, because they knew by me advocating on their behalf, I might have been risking my old license, because sometimes the greasy wheel in politics doesn't always get the grease, the squeaky wheel rather doesn't always get the grease. Rather it gets removed and replaced, especially in government. So I took that risk, and I was getting, I really try to surround myself with people who are positive, and I surrounded myself with people that loved and supported me and understood what I was doing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Next up will be Council Member Davis.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. I'm trying to get over this respiratory thing for like a month. I got a follow-up question about your cannabis administration thing for the seizures and such. Maybe I may have missed it. Did you say that you actually administer cannabis for like seizures and such, or?
No. And the question was, how do I see cannabis could be used in emergency medicine scenarios? And I think cannabis could be used in a seizure scenario, especially for pediatric patients. I could see the benefit because I've seen, not firsthand, but I've heard that cannabis oil can stop pediatric seizures fairly quickly. So I do believe cannabis can be used for that. But yeah, I have not done that myself.
Okay, all right. I was just kind of wanting to clarify on that. Yeah,
No, I can't.
I think that
I'm
would
not
be
admitting to any medical malpractice.
I have personal experience with that in helping children with seizures, either a nasal spray and or a sublingual tincture. And it's dramatic how quickly relief happens when you have the right chemistry for that child's needs. That's
Yep.
all I'll say. I'm not a doctor, but I've seen it happen again and again.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Wade. Mike?
So my question, sorry, apologize the cough again, is could you please give us the backstory of the lawsuit, as in how you navigated the system, have you been received by the powers that be, by the movement, and how did you get into the conversation?
Yeah, great question. A lot to that question as well. Well, in 2021, New York legalized adult use cannabis. Prior to that, it was only cannabis patients were allowed to possess cannabis and purchase cannabis. It was through a doctor, and PTSD and addiction were on that list as approved ailments for cannabis patients. So there was already some veteran advocacy on that end. But in 2021, New York legalized adult use cannabis via the law, the MRTA, the Marijuana and Regulation Taxation Act. Through that law, it laid out the framework of how adult use cannabis was to be rolled out in New York State. And it laid out the framework of how licenses, which licenses were going to be administered, and how they were, and who the goal was for these licenses to benefit. They had a goal of 51% of all adult use licenses to be issued to social equity classes. And the law stated 5 classes were such as social equity. There were distressed farmers, minorities, women, service-disabled veterans, and people who lived in communities disproportionately impacted by the prohibition of cannabis. So think zip codes and areas like that when I mentioned that. Okay. So, but there were also 2 caveats to that. There were bills that were passed for called the conditional processors and the conditional cultivators. These bills were added to this law to jumpstart the industry. They understood that in order to start the adult use cannabis industry, we need to grow this cannabis. So these 2 bills laid out the framework of who were supposed to grow the first cannabis in New York State to be sold, and they created a conditional cultivator and a conditional processor license, and this was passed, via the state and via the assembly. So when in 2022, when they started issuing these licenses, they first issued them to cultivators and processors, so they would, build up the supply chain. Great. Then the next step was, as per the law, that the New York State was supposed to issue retail licenses to the social equity classes that I described before, the 5 classes. But New York State did not do that. New York State instead created their own conditional retail license that was nowhere written into the law, or there was no conditional bill written, to support that. This conditional bill that they created was for those who were justice involved individuals and those who had previously owned businesses, meaning those who had a business history of running a successful business, as well as been convicted of a cannabis crime in the past. That sounds great. I love that idea. Social justice is a great idea, and I'm a supporter of that. But unfortunately, that's not what the law was written for. The law was written for social equity, and veterans were part of the social equity law in this case. So I spoke to the New York State regulators, more specifically the executive director of the Office of Cannabis Management, and I explained to them what was going on, and they took my words, and they said, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Then I went over to the legislative branch, and I started speaking to the senators and assembly members who passed the MRTA, and explained to them how the law was being played out. And they agreed that's not how the law was written, and that's not how they envisioned it. So I went through the executive branch by speaking to the OCM. I went through the legislative branch, and I even had them sponsor a letter and write a bipartisan letter with senators and assemblymen, Democrats and Republicans, all signing this letter stating that the conditional retail program was not a legal program and veterans were being left out and they needed to change. All right, so this letter was sent to the Office of Cannabis Management, and it was sponsored by the chair of the Veterans Committee for the Senate of New York State. And I was really happy that I was able to get that done. This took about months of meetings and months of. You guys know how difficult things could get, especially when we're talking about a bipartisan letter. Things could get really, iffy and touchy sometimes. But we had about 12 senators sign on to this letter, and it's something I was really proud of getting done. And unfortunately, this letter went to deaf ears and fell on deaf ears, unfortunately. So I had no choice but to go the judicial route, because I knew otherwise we would not veterans would not get a choice. We would not get a voice in this industry at all. because we would be overlooked. And by the time we would get a chance, there would be either no property for any potential real estate owners, and we wouldn't have a chance in this industry when capital and real estate is so important. So I got together with a bunch of veterans that I knew, and we spoke to a few lawyers. And the money that we all had invested originally into our businesses, we decided to invest into a lawsuit, and that's what we did. We started a lawsuit, and we settled on that lawsuit in the beginning of December, and I received a license in that settlement, as well as getting a lot of support for veterans across New York State. Um, yeah, it was 120 days that the lawsuit went on for, and at the end we got a lot of advocacy in New York State. We created a veteran task force for veterans in New York State, and a lot of the veteran task force is to help business development. Um, so I've have a little experience with this as well. I've helped other veterans across New York State. And now with this settlement that I was a part of, New York State has a task force to help veterans through business development, through education and training, and through community engagement. So now we have that written in black and white that the New York State Office of Cannabis Management has to help veterans in specific ways across New York State. So now it's not just pancakes and handshakes. Now they actually have to get down and really get to the VFWs, go to the American Legions, meet the veterans, and tell them, hey, we have a law and you were prioritized in this law. Come and see where you fit in. And we need veterans in the New York cannabis industry to really fill in these positions all across the supply chain. And yeah, that's the synopsis of the lawsuit.
Well, as the first veteran-owned cannabis dispensary myself, I salute your efforts and appreciate your dogged persistence to finally come up in the end. When you take that jump into the legal world, even though how much support you have, the questions are still in doubt until you have permit in hand. So congratulations on navigating the process, but navigating the process successfully. And I know that required lawyers. So a tip of the hat to your counsel as well, and making sure that you arrived where you are. And I'm enheartened to hear that there was veteran support around you the entire time, and that veterans will have further access in the future in New York State. Great on setting precedents there and maintaining it. So again, much respect. Next up will be Council Member Michael Crowitz.
Thank you, Etienne. It's great to meet you, Carmine. I really appreciate you coming on. The question I have for you is sort of tapping into vision. A lot of the time that we've spent sort of thinking about, the future of cannabis has been on the delivery side inside the VA. And that's, of course, a pretty big challenge to try to figure out how to eventually, handle that and get cannabis into the hands of vets that will actually benefit from it throughout this massive system. But really have a question that's a little bit different for you, kind of applying the vision in a little different direction, given your experience and your vision, your perspective from where you're at in New York. How do you see military veterans fitting into the cannabis industry, not just now, but into the future?
Oh man, great question. And I love this question because a lot of people ask this question. What can veterans do in the cannabis industry? What do veterans have to offer for cannabis? They're not the ones, and honestly, veterans come to the table with a lot of skills. Besides mentioning veterans being a shoe-in for the security aspects of dispensaries, for the security aspects of delivery, for the security aspects of distribution, cultivation, and processing, besides aspects of, security being a major regulation in all states that are legal for cannabis, veterans come to table with a attention to detail attitude. And if anyone's ever done an NCOER before or done any paperwork with the military, we know how attention to detail looks like on the military end. And, we bring that to the table when it comes to management style, general management, store management, accountant management, marketing management. We need these members who are disciplined and, can follow a structured protocol for how to act when things happen and how to react when things occur, as well as a attention to detail person. And that's why a lot of military NCO, supervisors, NCOs, are really a shoe-in for managerial positions across the supply chain, whether it's a store manager at a retail dispensary or a cultivation supervisor or a master grower, a master genetics, a technician. There's a lot that veterans have to offer. It's the way we work and the way we operate that makes us stand out in any sector of business, really, because we come to the table day after day and we produce day after day. And whatever that looks like in your business, that still holds true for veterans.
There is a question that came from our internet from the name Matthew Gregg. If it's written, it can be changed. What do you need specifically?
Can you repeat that?
If it is written, it can be changed. What do you need specifically?
It's not about what I need anymore. I am blessed enough, to have an adult use cannabis license in New York State. It's what veterans need right now. In New York State and veterans right now, they need representation in the industry. I would love, to do what I can and help any veteran I come across 100%. But specifically on the Cannabis Control Board and New York State, we have something called a Cannabis Advisory Board, where we have a group of professional individuals that get together and we advise the state regulators on what they should do. Unfortunately, there's no veteran on that board either. So veterans across the board in New York State don't have state representation in the cannabis industry. Now, with this settlement that we have because of the lawsuit I was part of, we have a task force, and hopefully that task force can grow into some type of representation. But I would love for it to be written into law that every social equity group should have a state representative on the Cannabis Control Board, because this Cannabis Control Board will be setting the regulations for how we operate. And we should have representation on that board as well. So I really think we should have that.
Yeah, it's an important part. and to maintain it. We don't want to end up like VFWs. All right. Next up will be Council Member Jones.
All right. Thank you, Carmine. My next question is, New York seemed to have a disproportionately large amount of counterfeit products claiming to be Cali products, etc. How is New York doing regarding this? Patient access to quality cannabis products. Thank you.
Peggy, great question. Recently, I want to say as of a week and a half ago, New York State Governor Kathy Hochul did a phenomenal job, and she passed into law the padlock law. So now anyone that has an illicit cannabis shop in New York State will be subject to being padlocked with severe penalties, and these are enforceable by law. Before, these illicit cannabis shops were operating in the gray area. For example, New York State is legal to gift someone cannabis, but I cannot charge you for cannabis. So the way these illicit markets were working around that law is people were buying a sticker for $50, and then I would gift you $50 worth of cannabis. So that's why they call it the gray market, the gray area, because they were operating in that gray legal loophole. So now New York State created this padlock law in order to enforce any operators that are operating in that illicit gray area. So you won't know. So now well, when you're walking down the street in Manhattan, in New York City, if you see a cannabis store, it's a legal cannabis store, not an illicit shop uh, that is selling non-tested product, because all products, that are regulated are tested. So.
All right. Thank you for that. Next up will be Council Member Laughter.
That was question number 7, if I believe.
Yep. Correct.
Okay. Oh, yeah, this was good. So Carmen, you have a dispensary. How would you see catering to any specials for veterans that might not be currently seen in the industry? And I sort of had a follow-up question on the counterfeit product. As a dispensary owner, I'm imagining you do occasionally see folks who are trying to sell you things that might not be 100% legit. How do you deal with that? And are you encountering that? So that's 2 questions. Have fun. Thank you, Carmen.
Yeah, no problem. My dispensary is not open yet. It'll be opening end of September, beginning of October. More to come on that. But yeah, regarding the illicit market question, yes, there have been illicit distributors trying to offer you product to sell on your shelves, and they give you enticing terms like I'll front you the product and you just pay me back whenever you want, hoping that I'll pay them back that product and also make a reorder. The way I deal with that is just I ignore them. I don't listen to their sales pitch. I say thank you, but no thank you. But if you're interested in selling me products, send me, email me your license number to this email, and I just deal with them that way. If they can't do that, then they don't get a follow-up call from me. And what was the other question, my man? I'm sorry.
You're on mute, Wade. We can't hear you. Wade, you're on mute.
Yeah.
There you go.
Specials for
Asking
veterans.
about special products for veterans.
See, that's
special
one thing.
preparations and or special deals, if you will, as a way of getting the veterans access. Here in California, for example, we have a compassionate use program that allows a lot of folks to access cannabis at no cost. Yeah, how do you see being able to serve veterans in the context of a dispensary owner? That's, I guess, my question. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. I would love to, but right now, New York State regulations make it illegal for any legal dispensary to offer specials or discounts to anyone in that store. So whatever I wish to do and wanted to do, I cannot legally do. It is a shame, and that's something that I wish was changed, and that's something I will most definitely be advocating for in this New York industry, because I sincerely believe that a lot of veterans will be coming to New York State recreational dispensaries, to get a different menu of cannabis for their medical ailments, because it's an adult use dispensary. It's not a recreational dispensary. People using it for adult use reasons, where it's be medical, spiritual, or wellness. So for not allowing specials for veterans, disabled veterans, or disabled first responders, is unjust in my opinion, and that's something I would be advocating for in New York State. But unfortunately, it's illegal for me to offer any specials or discounts to anyone. But I would like to speak to anyone that has any ideas how to lobby for that. I would love ideas and recommendations how to go about it.
Oh yeah, we could have here in California. We can provide you with the language that we have. We're changing it right now. It was SB 34. It's now Assembly Bill 2555, and it's to allow us to. I've been giving away free cannabis for 25 years now, and that's because we had done this before the law changed, Carmine. So that's part of the luck of pioneering is we got in there before rules were written. However, once the law did as Proposition 64 in 2016, we lobbied for at the state level SB 34, which allows for donations and allows product to be donated directly to the dispensaries or to organizations to be distributed to veterans or other low income individuals. In Berkeley here, we have a law that states we give away up to 2% per year to Berkeley residents. So that's how we've included it in our community by working in the community as well as working then together at the state level, of which we're still working on together and will continue until we see the reality of continuing to give away, because we find it very important, as we know, and for people who are watching, why does it matter, especially to disabled veterans? Well, yes, we do get a paycheck from the government monthly. However, it's very limited given general living and how people exist. And then add in the high cost of cannabis, it's very challenging to afford the quality of medicine you want to see. So we have found it to be exponentially important to be able to guarantee it. So I know New York hates California to a certain resolve, but we're happy to provide you with the language accordingly that you can take to Albany and, let them handle it from there.
Please, yeah, please definitely email that over to me. I know Joe's the person to show this information, SB 34 and the AB 2555. I would love to take a look at that. Yeah.
Councilmember Laughter, you got a follow up?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in that there's really two components to Senate Bill 34 and 2555 that would be relevant for your work, Carmen.
Okay.
Part of it is allowing all of the folks along the supply chain to designate their work as for donation. And it can pass through the system without taxation, which is the second part of it. So that by the time a dispensary is giving product to a qualified patient, they can give it at no cost, free of taxation. That's the real key to me, because in California at the retail level, the tax burden can rise as high as 38 to 40%. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Carmine, thank you very much for taking the time and educating us on what's happened in New York State. And in the future, come back and tell us how it's going. Please take this time now to plug your dispensary. What's its name? What's its location? If you have an opening day, or, I know you gave some, some vagues there. So I understand in the land of build out that it's its own set of challenges to arrive on time and on budget. So I wish you Godspeed there and success navigating the waters of planning, building and planning commissions. They're a joy.
Oh man, Etienne, thank you so much. I am going to take this time right now to defer my plug because we're still in the middle of build out and we are still awaiting the launch of everything right now. I'm speaking with architectural designs right now to get everything done up, especially for this launch. But I will tell people that who are interested in a veteran-owned dispensary in Manhattan and New York City, please follow me, Carmine Fiore, either on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on my Instagram. And I am here for any veteran or first responder that has ever struggled with PTSD and or addiction. As somebody that has struggled really, really bad with PTSD and addiction, I want to be a resource for everyone that's out there. Cannabis has saved my life, and I want to be able to pay it forward to others today. So I want to thank you guys so much for giving me this time and asking me these great questions. And I hope to come back soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. We appreciate the time you took to share your story. It is unique and uniquely yours, but we can't appreciate it more. And we hope that people got an understanding about what's taking place. And we look forward to seeing more veterans in the New York cannabis industry. And wish you success and longevity, Carmine. I wish you the same 25 years that I've experienced, but of course, without the headaches and the lawsuits. But I want to see everybody succeed, and especially veterans in their community. And I hope you can build on that. Your community embraces you the way that it should. So, all right, everybody. Thank you very much. I want to thank our council members, Peggy Jones, Wade Laughter, Mike Davis, Leslie Fries, Michael Crowitz, myself, Etienne Fontan, and our guest Carmine Fiore for V.A.C. Roundtable number 75. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.